It's not often that I feel compelled to experience a video game that straight up reminds me of the worst hangover I have ever experienced, but here we are nonetheless. Welcome to Post Void, a fast-paced, first-person action roguelike that simply tasks you with reaching the end of a level before the liquid drains from your head. The head that, obviously, you hold in your hand. Standing in your way and seeking to drain you of your precious bodily fluids is a cacophony of enemies, some of which shoot, some of which simply rock up and attempt to bite you. The remedy for either kind, however, is the same. Shoot them in the face, receive a top-up for your head, and carry on your merry way. It certainly doesn't hurt that at the core of this experience is a wonderfully fluid feeling system of movement. You've got your standard W, A, S, and D, though for the most part you'll be hitting the forward key, and you've also got a knee slide, which if you time it just right, will allow you to dodge incoming projectiles. After that, for the most part, it comes down to you, your reaction time, and your aptitude for headshots. Successful completion of a level will grant you access to one of 3 upgrades, and in all honesty, the upgrade screen is probably the most significant dilemma you'll have to consider during the course of Post Void. You've got options such as Big Idle, which will increase the liquid capacity of your head. You've got extra magazine capacity, which will allow you to shoot longer and reload less. You've even got exploding enemies, which is something you might want to keep in mind for later on down the line when enemies tend to group together a little bit more frequently. And if you're having trouble, there's even an upgrade that will allow you to slow down the speed of enemy projectiles. If I had to mention the upgrades that caused me the most significant pause for thought, however, it would be the choice of weapon. You're not just restricted to the handgun, you can also choose from an Uzi, you can choose from a shotgun, and if you're feeling particularly chaotic, you can just straight up charge around wielding nothing but a knife. And the dilemma here when it comes to choice of weapon to wield largely stems from the fact that the handgun that you start with is actually really effective, provided of course that you can nail those reliable headshots. If you're wielding the Uzi, burst fire is your friend, lest the recoil place your aim somewhere in the vicinity of the ceiling. It works perfectly fine on earlier levels, but once you drill down into those latter acts, not only does the complexity of the map make it a little more difficult to know where to aim at a moment's notice, but the finesse with which you're asked to take care of smaller, more numerous enemies can make it a little bit more of a tricksy weapon to wield.
Let me see what you have! A knife! No!
Ah, the knife. The knife is for people who want to embody the fullest state of chaos possible. For people who like to live on the edge and skirt the thin line between life and death, because you will be perpetually seeing that countdown. Something that, I must admit, is a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with when wielding a gun, because it entirely occupies the center of your vision while you're trying to aim at something, but with the knife, it's not so much of a problem. You're getting all up in everything's grill and just making sure you thoroughly stab it to death. If, however, in the pursuit of progress, you're seeking a weapon that thoroughly embodies the sentiment of shooty bang make go away, I can make no higher recommendation than the shotgun. I mean, sure, it may require a reload after every 2 shots, but in my opinion it more than makes up for this attribute by requiring much less of you on the accuracy front. This can frequently take out multiple enemies in a single blast, and works wonderfully in conjunction with stacked upgrades. For example, the magazine capacity can allow you to do 3 shots before a reload, and add exploding enemies into the mix, and you've got a whole bunch of chain reaction death dealing right at your fingertips. Trust me when I say, this weapon will take you far, but as for the question of how far you need to be taken, it may not come as a surprise for you to learn that, depending on your level of skill and perseverance, Post Void can wind up being quite a short game. For sake of example, a victorious run from yours truly took a shade over 7 minutes, but you need to couch that in the fact that to get a 7-minute victory run, I had to put in roughly 2 hours worth of learning the ropes and finessing my skills. Someone else may assuredly be able to do it quicker. For some, it may take even longer, but really it just depends on how Post Void treats you with regards to its randomized level layout and its doling out of enemies. Sometimes it can be harsh, front-loading a level with some unfortunate combinations of enemy. Sometimes the undulations of the level can just prove a little too much and cause your aim to be thoroughly thrown off, and the twists and turns, yes, can occasionally find you facing a dead end. But crucially, in the finest roguelite tradition, failure is not the end, failure is just an excuse to give it another crack. And boy, did I find myself eagerly hammering that restart key because, good grief, this is a lot of fun. That said, I can freely understand why this, stylistically speaking, may not be someone's particular cup of tea. It's visually garish, occasionally unpleasant to look at, and as I freely admitted at the start of this video, it reminded me of the worst hangover I've ever experienced. However, I kind of admire it for that. For one, the hangover comparison isn't meant to reference any abject searing pain that I experienced while playing Post-Void, more a reference to the sense of visual overload when you find yourself looking at anything remotely colourful or bright. I admire the low-res scuzziness of it, and I admire the aesthetic that, in all honesty, recalls late 80s, early 90s MTV idents. Those weird experimental animations where you genuinely wondered how they were even able to get away with showing that on TV. So yeah, overall I think it's incredibly fun, it's got a really interesting aesthetic, it's short, sweet, to the point, and probably a great example of brevity in game design. Something that just thoroughly nails its core gameplay loop and just keeps you coming back for more. Doesn't hurt that it's dirt cheap either.